Imagine your country is being divided by two foreign officials and a map. No vote, no referendum, and no expectation that this would last. When we think of North and South Korea today, division feels natural. Two countries, two governments, and two different identities. But I want to ask something stranger today. What if the line dividing Korea was never supposed to become permanent? What if this line existed in geopolitical thought long before the end of the Korean War in 1953? And was the 38th parallel destiny? Or was it simply a coincidence that some mistook as destiny? For most of its history, Korea was a unified political entity. And I don't mean to say that there was never any internal conflict, but there was no North and South Korea. Then came Japanese colonial rule from 1910 to 1945. And upon Japan's surrender in 45, the question became for the Allied powers who will be there to accept Japan's surrender on the Korean Peninsula? On August 10th, 1945, two young American officers, Dean Rusk and Charles Bonesteel, were reportedly asked to draw a proposed division line for the Korean Peninsula. They were given very little time to do so. Years later, when asked, Rusk recalled, "We felt it important to include the capital of Korea in the American occupation zone." So, Rusk and Bonesteel opened a map and they selected the 38th parallel. Not because of religious differences in the region, not because the line had been culturally significant to Koreans or because of any ethnic differences in the regions, but partly because the capital would be included in the American occupation zone. And then something unexpected happened. The Soviets accepted this proposal, and overnight, a temporary military administration became the grounds for division. That line was never intended to create two permanent countries. Well, at least not at first. That's not to say that the idea of the 38th parallel came out of nowhere, because before 1945, foreign powers had already imagined that Korea could be divided up into special influence zones. The exact borders changed, but the concept that Korea could be divided up geographically by its stronger neighbors had already existed. Which makes me wonder, when American planners reached for the map in 1945, did they really invent something new? Or did they accidentally choose a line that already fit existing geopolitical logic? Historians generally hate the idea of destiny because honestly, history usually looks something more like improvisation than prophecy. But sometimes people make temporary decisions and later generations end up treating them as the inevitable reality. The 38th parallel feels ancient today, but it wasn't. It became meaningful because people built institutions around it. And today, these institutions have become identities. By 1948, the occupation zones had hardened, and now there were two states. In the north, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, and in the south, the Republic of Korea. Each government claimed legitimacy over the peninsula, and of course, war followed. In 1950, North Korea crossed into the south, and all of a sudden, the borders looked completely different. The communist forces controlled nearly the entire peninsula. Later, United Nations and South Korean forces pushed north, and then Chinese intervention pushed the momentum back to the side of the north. And where did all this fighting end? Not exactly at the 38th parallel, but close enough that the symbolism remained relevant. In my opinion, it might be one of the strangest ironies in human history. Years of movement and border changes, and so many lives lost, just to end up with nearly the same borders. This actually reminds me of something that I noticed when I was spending a semester in Seoul during my undergraduate studies. Before I arrived, I expected that the division would be something that was obvious all the time. But daily life didn't feel that way. You can spend time in Seoul and completely forget that there's an unresolved conflict going on nearby. And that disconnect really stayed with me because for my entire life, Korea had existed as two separate entities in my mind. But actually being there made division feel like something much more modern and way less inevitable. But what if Korea wasn't divided at the 38th parallel? Then what were the other options available? This is important to talk about because a lot of people today discuss Korea as if the division was always going to happen, but that actually isn't true. Besides the 38th parallel proposed by the Americans in the 1940s, there were several other options. One was a full Soviet occupation, and one was a full American occupation. But you can probably imagine why neither side was too keen on those ideas. There were also proposals for an international trusteeship, which was originally proposed by President Roosevelt years earlier, who envisioned a multinational administration before eventual Korean self governance. Others envisioned a unified Korea with nationwide elections. And of course, there was the possibility that division would remain temporary and would disappear after a few years. But as we know, none of those came to pass. Instead, a temporary occupation line drawn in 1945 remains the reality on the Korean Peninsula today. Today, when we discuss Korean politics, one of the burning questions is that of reunification. If division became permanent, do people still want to undo it? For decades, reunification was treated as almost an unquestionable national goal for both North and South Korea. But recent data tells a more complicated story. According to the Korea Institute for National Unification's 2024 survey, 53% of South Koreans stated that reunification was necessary, only slightly more than half of the participants, and support was strongest among the older generations. Among millennials, support dropped to 47%, and younger respondents often gave a different reason than the older generations. Not national identity or unity, not historical closure, but rather reducing the risk for war. Then in 2025, something changed. For the first time in the survey's history, the majority of respondents said that reunification was not necessary, 51%. And this statistic really stood out to me. 63% of participants agreed with this statement. Reunification is not necessary if peaceful coexistence can be maintained. Almost half of respondents said that they would accept permanent division. And that doesn't necessarily mean that people stopped caring, but maybe it indicates something a little more human. Older generations still remember the separation, and younger generations inherited stability. And for many people today, reunification may no longer feel inevitable, but rather as something a bit more symbolic, something that's hoped for, but not necessarily expected within their own lifetimes. So, was the 38th parallel actually destiny? I don't think so. A line drawn quickly became institutions, which became identities, which later became national borders. And borders are today's reality, not because anyone planned 80 years into the future, but because temporary decisions have a weird way of becoming permanent. And maybe that's the more unsettling question. What type of decisions are policymakers and leaders making today that one day will be accepted for reality and even mistaken as destiny? So, what do you think? Was the 38th parallel division of Korea the best solution to the war, or would you have gone with a different option completely? Let me know what you think in the comments. Anyway, that's enough geopolitical existentialism for today. It's the beginning of a new month, so I'd love to share a little bit about my favorites from the past month with you. So, first, connected to this topic, I'd love to recommend the book Korea, A New History of South and North by Victor Cha. I actually had the opportunity to attend a talk with Dr. Cha and ask him some questions when he visited my university as an undergraduate. And I just think he's an excellent writer. And for those unfamiliar with Korean history or who would like a more like modern, updated view, I think this is a great place to start. So I would highly recommend it. As you can see, I'm actually not at home right now. I am on holiday in Greece while I'm filming this. So I have some favorites from Greece as well. First, I'd like to share a new sunscreen that I've been using. It's a new formula by La Roche-Posay. It's their Anthelios UV Air Serum Sunscreen. I have the tinted kind in the color Light Natural, and it's SPF 50 plus, which I definitely need in this Greek sunshine. Before I was using the Elta MD UV Clear, which I love, but it's unfortunately unavailable in Europe. And I believe that European sunscreens actually have more advanced protection technology, as do Korean sunscreens. So I was excited to try this kind, and I can highly, highly recommend. I'm actually wearing it as my makeup today, and it definitely gets the job done. So I would definitely recommend this one. It's super lightweight and it feels great on the skin. My next favorite from the past month is the Belia Beauty Expert Clear Face Mist, which is basically just a hypochlorous acid spray. I've been traveling a lot, so definitely this is important for me to have on the airplane or on trains just to keep my face nice and clean so I don't develop any acne during my travels. Yeah, and since I am in Greece right now, I have definitely been taking advantage of their amazing selection of jewelry. So I thought I'd share a little jewelry haul with you of what I have acquired since I got here. So first, I got this choker necklace. It's gold color, gold plated with some sapphire stones. I really love it. I think it goes really great with my sacred heart necklace. Next, I got this bracelet. It's kind of gold with like a labyrinth design, and I think it goes great with my other bracelets. It doesn't tarnish, so I can go swimming or take a shower without worrying about ruining the bracelet. And then I also got this bracelet with some multicolored stones. Yeah, if you are in Greece or you're planning a trip to Greece, then definitely save some room in your suitcase because you're going to want to stock up on all the amazing jewelry here. So, thank you so much for watching this video and for your support on my essays. If you liked the video, I would really appreciate if you liked and subscribed, leave a comment, and shared it with your friends or your network. And I will see you in next week's video.